I'm going to talk about relationships today. And I'd like to start by saying relationships are difficult because sometimes we speak different languages depending on the culture that we grew up in, the education that we had. And so sometimes I'll say something and somebody else won't truly understand what I'm saying, so they imagine it, and it can be way off base. Now, my cousin Ozzy has this problem. He has a great deal of difficulty with relationships because he doesn't have a filter on what he says. Whatever he thinks, he just puts it out there, and sometimes what he says is very, very strange, and people don't get it. A perfect example of this was a couple of weeks ago. Ozzy and his girlfriend, Olga Skanky, were sitting on the park bench under a full moon, beautiful night, and Ozzy thought that it might be a good time to approach her for a kiss. So he took off his glasses and he put them in his pocket, and he turned to her. And Olga looked at him under that full moon, and she said, "Ozzy, without your glasses, you look just like you did 20 years ago." And Ozzy said, "Olga, without my glasses, you look like you did 20 years ago." Okay, relationships. I first of all want to impress heavily on everybody here that relationships are everything. Everything in existence, everything in your life, everything about you is a relationship. You can't think of a single thing, whether it be your gender, whether it be your marital status, whether it be your job, whether it be your family position, that doesn't involve a relationship of some sort. Relationships are everything. Even when we meditate and we go into the silence and we go into that nothingness, we're still relating to the nothingness. There is nothing outside of relationships. And I want to strongly impress that upon you because sometimes we take them lightly. We just think, well, that's just a relationship that went bad, or that's just a relationship that wasn't meant to be. But relationships are everything. That's the first point. And the second point is that relationships don't come and go. When you develop a relationship with somebody, whether it's happy, sad, good, or bad, it doesn't make any difference, but that relationship becomes a part of you, and it remains a part of you forever. Even if the other person transcends into the next dimension, the relationship that you have with that person is still within you. It still exists. Relationships never go away. I forget who it was, but somebody coined the relationships as spiritual children. So if I have a relationship with you, that you-me relationship is a spiritual child within me. And it is all mine. It has to do with you, but it is mine because it is in me. And in the same respect, you have a relationship with me that's in you, and that's all yours. You can do what you want with it. You don't need my permission. So relationships are everything. Relationships last forever. The third point is the health or the condition or the well-being of all of your relationships combined is identical to the health and well-being of you and your life. If you have a single relationship that is filled with acrimony and hate and disgust or resentment or sorrow, that is like having a single tooth that has a decay within it, and that affects the whole body. A single relationship that is not balanced, that is not in harmony, affects every other part of your life. Even if it's just a little bit, it still affects every part of your life because it's in you and it's a part of you. So if relationships are so important, if relationships are indeed everything, if relationships do last forever, what is the purpose of them? Well, the purpose is to progress or to evolve or to grow God's plan. And that is to let the God Spirit within us, the light, the love, the peace, the harmony, radiate out to that which we are relating to. That's the entire purpose, to progress, to evolve ourselves to higher levels of existence. And the only way we can do that is through relationships. When I move into a relationship, there are 3 rules to follow, or 3 policies to follow, or 3 should-dos. And the first is to move into that relationship and be the greatest expression of myself that I can be at that time, however that might be. The second thing is to truly connect with the other person. And the third is that the result of that relationship furthers the higher good of not only myself and the other person, but also the universe itself. If we're expressing love, there's more love in the universe. If we're expressing peace, there's more peace in the universe. If we're expressing kindness to each other, there's more kindness in the universe. So, we move into a relationship, the very greatest and the best that we can be, and that means allowing that light within us, that spiritual light within us, to express itself outwards. We connect with the other person in a sincere way, and then together we produce something that has a positive effect on everybody and everything. Now, this isn't a theory that just came about last year by some best-selling author. This is the way life has been since the very beginning. There has never been an existence, there's never been a universe that did not have its foundation based on relationships. 14 billion years ago, there was the Big Bang. There was nothing, there was darkness, there was a void. The Big Bang, millions and millions of miles of the universe was lit up with tiny little atoms. And immediately, the atoms began to congregate together. They began to connect. And then as they did, the energy of the congregated atoms turned into a molecule. Now the point is, within each and every atom, there was something greater to it than it had experienced up to that point. It had potential. It had a future. There was a design within it to become more than it was, just as there is with us. So the atoms congregate together and they become this molecule. The molecules do the exact same thing. They bring the best molecule part of themselves forward. They connect with other molecules, and the result of that is a cell. A cell comes about. Now, this has been going on for 14 billion years. And then the cells come together, and there's a myriad of different expressions that come about as a result. I mean, from animals to fishes to birds in the air to us. All a result of a relationship that followed the 3 primary principles of be the very best that you can be in order that you can excel to the highest potential that you have, connect with other people, and in that process become something greater than what you'd been in the process. You take one tiny little seed and you plant that seed deep in the ground. Now, within the seed, there becomes a sprout. And that sprout has to push its way out of that outer shell in order to live. And it does that. And then the sprout has to push its way up through the soil until it gets to the very top. And then it has to push through the surface. And once it's through the surface, it has to withstand heavy rains and winds and extremely hot weather in order to become a stem. And then this stem continues to grow and it produces a bulb. And the bulb is wrapped up in very tightly woven leaves, but it has to move through that so that it can become the fully blossomed flower. That which it was meant to be. That which was the spiritual design within the seed when it was first planted in the ground. The fully blossomed flower. Now, the point of that is that each and every one of us is in the process of growing and becoming more than we've ever been before. And we're not going to manifest that physically, but we manifest it in a conscious point of view. We increase our awareness, we sharpen our awareness, we focus it. We begin to see the world differently. We begin to provide, once again, our light to the world because we see it worthy of it. So for 14 billion years of evolution, we've had this history of watching everything join together, and in that process become something greater than it is. Now, the problem that we have is sometimes we forget the purpose for being here. See, we live in two dimensions. We live in a physical dimension, and that is me, and it's my body, and it's what I can see and touch and feel. But then there's also the spiritual dimension of me, and that is the spirit that was in the beginning. That is the spirit that has been the river that has run through all of existence, and that is the spirit that's within me right now, this very moment. But as a spiritual person, I don't necessarily identify with myself as that. I am dupe. I am physical. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. And when I go into relationships, it's that physical part of me that says, yes, how are you doing? But I don't identify with the spiritual part of me because sometimes that is just too difficult. Spiritual means to shift the perspective of who we think we are. They call it enlightenment, where I shift from I am more than just a physical being with my attitudes and my mistakes and my problems and my conflicts and relationships. I'm a spiritual being that is pure. I'm a spiritual being that has a light that is undimable, that will continue to move forward and serve the world if I allow it. Now, when I say we go forth to express the spiritual person that we are, and that is not easy, it's because somehow, some way, we get in our mind that whoever we're relating to isn't worthy of the spiritual part of ourselves. They are obnoxious, they are belligerent, they are mean, they are disrespectful. Why should I share my spiritual self with somebody like that? Why should I shine my light into the darkness? Well, why not? Because it is not me that is doing it, but it is the Spirit that flows through me that is doing it. Now, just imagine for a moment that there's 600 light bulbs in this building, and each and every one of us represents one light bulb. And every light bulb is putting out light. And so identify with ourselves as that light bulb and the light that comes out of it. But it isn't the light bulb that puts anything into the world. It is just a vehicle or a conduit. It is the electricity that flows to the light bulb. And as every bulb comes alive with light and it comes out, all of those single beams of light become one light. But without the electricity, without the connection, there is no light. And it's the same with us. If we're not connected to that spirit within us, if we're not grounded in the spiritual aspect of our being, if we don't know that we are an expression of God's Spirit here to be a beneficial presence to the world, if we don't know that, then we live in squalor, as Jesus said. We're impoverished because we're not using what we have been given. Now, when I say you move into a relationship and it's somebody that is very difficult to get along with, I'm not saying that you have to like them. And I am not saying that you have to hang out and move in with them. And sometimes this even gets down to family members that it's just difficult to be around. All I'm saying is don't let them diminish your light. Don't let them pull you down into the darkness so you start behaving like they do. You maintain your light and you shine it on them with a I wish you well, whether silently or aloud. That's all it takes. I wish you well. Everybody, I wish you well. You've stolen from me. You've cheated on me. You've abused me. I wish you well. And I move on to shine my light on those who can receive it with gratitude. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit about relationships and what we can do to fine-tune those relationships that are a mainstay in our lives. The ones that we love being in, we love being together, but sometimes they get a little rocky, and sometimes the conflict arises, and sometimes we might speak in a discourteous way. But what can we do to prevent that from happening and still have our needs met and maintain our freedom within the relationship? That'll come next week. For now, let's just take a moment to meditate.